Hello everybody, welcome to the show for 1 hour of miniature goodness. You're making me laugh. I was reading chat as I started the live. I've just started a little bit earlier because I wanted to show you all the goodness I have tonight. Now, today I wanted to talk about looking after your minis and stripping old metal miniatures. Now, I've got miniatures, let me just get some focus. I got some miniatures from the 70s. This is how far back my collection goes, and back in the 70s it was very difficult to get hold of the miniatures, even though Dungeons and Dragons was around back in the 70s. Finding the miniatures was very difficult. As you can see at the bottom, I don't know if you can see this one. Let's see if we get thank you for subscribing, Nath. There we are, look, 1975. Oh my god. So, this is a wizard. But what I want to talk to you about today is stripping your old metal miniatures. And we're going to be working on this beautiful Balrog here. This is the original. Get some focus, Mikey. This is the original Balrog from Games Workshop. This one was actually released, I think, in 2001, 2002. This is the metal version, and this one has plastic wings. Now, with some of the miniatures, especially if you want to strip old miniatures, because this is half plastic and half metal, it's not viable for stripping like I strip my miniatures. So all we can do with this miniature is we can take the paint off in certain places and work over that paint, as long as it's not too thick. Now, this was painted probably 20 years ago now, but we'll move on to that in a minute. I want to show you my setup for stripping miniatures. Now, let me show you some more of these little metal ones. These are all from the 70s, and as you can see, even in the 70s, there's some very cool little sculpts. And I'll also show you all the miniatures once they've been stripped as well. But these are old classic, old school metal goodness. Now, if you lick these, you're going to get high on lead. Okay, let me say hello. I've already missed everybody. I think everybody's shot up the screen there. I know Scorpio was there, Michelle was there, Nath, Philippe is there. Hello, Philippe. Rod's in the house. Gareth, hello Star Wars man. Dawn in the house. Mokai. God, there's loads of you. What's going on? What's going on? Tal's in the house. Lick it. No, I'm not licking the lead. Okay. So here's some more little minis. Now, I don't know, I mean, most of you, I know there's a few of you in chat there that are old school. So this might be a nice little lesson for you to work out about stripping your miniatures. Now, there are many products on the market now that you can buy to strip your miniatures, metal or plastic. But as I've been painting and stripping, I've stripped thousands and thousands of miniatures over the years. And I only use one substance, and that is Dettol. Now, the Dettol I use, as you can see, I use old jam jars and stuff. And Dettol is a detergent you use like around the kitchen and the bathrooms. Now, it's a UK product, and I'm sure you can buy Dettol in the USA and in Europe. It's the bottle that's got the cross on it, but it's very cheap. It's about £3 to £4, and you get a nice big bottle of Dettol. And all you do to strip your miniatures is you put your Dettol in a little glass container like so, and you just lift up the lid, put the Dettol inside. Now, what I do with the Dettol is I'll put like a 90% of the jar will be filled with pure Dettol, and the rest a tiny bit of water, just a little bit of water. And all we do then is we grab our little old 1970s miniature and plonk it into the Dettol. We put the lid back on so it doesn't stink the house out. We put that into a storage area and just leave it for a few days, and the paint will actually just come away and strip away perfectly. That's how easy it is to remove the paint. Now the tricky part is to actually get the paint away from the metal, and this is where we need some specialist tools. So hello wise one. So the specialist tools are, let me zoom out. Now you can use any old things. These are real good old rubber gloves. Now you're going to need this because when the Dettol reacts with the paint, it turns into a mess of lead paint, acrylic paint, enamel paint, gloss paint. You've got your varnishes. There's many toxic substances, especially on pre-90s miniatures, and pre-70s miniatures. We're talking mega toxic. Mega toxic. Okay, so this is my setup. Now I got some old pots and pans from my catering days, so I'm just using these. As you can see, I've used them a lot already. This is where I actually add all my miniatures. So once the miniatures are ready to come out of here, I'm just gonna give you a brief demonstration of how this works. So all we do, we've got our little sieve here, and all we're doing is our miniature is in the pot there. So all we do is we pour out the Dettol, and the miniature comes out and lands on our old sieve. So of course then we've got the miniature, you'll have the gloves on. Then we use an old toothbrush. As you can see, this is a well-used toothbrush, and all we do is we take off the paint with the toothbrush. Now the second part is, what we do is I fill the bottom of this pot with more Dettol, and then that miniature will go into the second pot, and that'll be rinsed and washed and cleaned, and then all we do is we put the miniature back into the original Dettol, and we rinse and repeat until that miniature is lovely and clean. But we just keep on using Dettol, and whatever you do, do not wash the miniature with water. Now the reason if you wash the miniature with water, what will happen is all the paint will turn into a gloopy mess and will stick to everything. So what happens is, if you keep on using that Dettol, that'll keep on removing the paint, and once the paint is fully removed, then just use soapy water on the metal miniature to give it a good clean up. Okay, so that's all you need to do to strip your miniatures. If you do have any more questions about stripping miniatures, metal miniatures, then ask me on Discord, and I'll be quite happy to answer all your questions. I have done a YouTube video on stripping miniatures as well, but here is my classic 80s and 70s collection of miniatures. These have all been stripped. Let me get some focus. No, a bit more. Yes, I got paint everywhere. I'm a painter. What do you expect? There we are. So I've got some very old miniatures here. I've got a classic owl bear in here. A lot of you old school collectors will probably recognize a lot of these miniatures. So I'll show you a few of these miniatures, and then I'll move on to prepping up the Balrog. But it's nice to see some old classic miniatures. Like I say, a few of you will probably recognize a few of them. There's a lot of old Games Workshop from the 80s miniatures here, but you can always tell the ones that have been stripped. What will happen is you'll have a darker effect. I mean, this is an old 70s, so we're talking, you can see that's lead already, compared to the 80s version. The 80s version was a mixture of lead and metal. And then of course as we moved into the 90s it became pure pewter without the lead. But I got hundreds and hundreds of classic miniatures. Now most of these miniatures I painted up as a young man back in the 80s, but of course as you paint over the years you'll end up looking back on your old miniatures and, you know, going, yeah, okay, I need to strip these. So you will probably end up stripping a lot of your old miniatures, and using the Dettol way is probably one of the best ways to the old Marauders. Hello Ravencroft and Ties in the house. Have I missed anyone else? I'm just going to show you a few more of these miniatures because these are all the old classic ones. As you can see with the stripping of the paint, you will sometimes have a little bits left on the paint where you've stripped it, but that is perfectly acceptable to be repainted, and that is all by just soaking your miniatures in Dettol. The only thing with the Dettol is it will, even after stripping them a few years, you will get a Dettol-y smell from your miniatures, but of course if you are painting over those miniatures, that smell will go. I mean, look at some of these. This is a classic. But it's absolutely beautiful, some of these old classic miniatures. But if you strip your miniatures, of course it's going to save you money, and this is why I love metal miniatures more than plastic, resin, because metal is so easy to strip down and start again. And like I say, these are all classic 70s and 80s miniatures, and it's just, you know, they're like new now. I think I've got some original, there we are, I think this one is, yes, original Lord of the Rings from the 80s, Games Workshop 80s. We've got some zombies there, or mummy actually. Yes, yes, I know. This is what I was, thank you, Bull GM. This is what I was saying about, it's really important. I mean, you can see these are lead models, especially these ones. These are pure lead, and you can see just by the colorings. Even though I've stripped the paint off, you can see this is 90% lead, and my fingers are already, you can see my fingers have already got a little bit of grey on there. Now, if I start licking my fingers, it will make me poorly. I will get lead poisoning. Thank you for subscribing, Tim. And thank you, Michelle, for gifting. But the old miniatures, there's something about the classic old miniatures. I mean, I got some of the old classic Games Workshop dwarfs there. I mean, some of you are going to recognise these, and some fond memories will suddenly come popping back. Now, I could do a whole show. Thank you for following. I could do a whole show just showing you thousands and thousands of different old miniatures, and I might do that in the future because I have got thousands of miniatures from the classic Warhammer days from Games Workshop, plus I've got my painted miniatures from the classic days of Warhammer as well. I mean, I'm a Reaper man and a WizKids man now. My Warhammer days are over. Things have changed, prices have gone up. It's a very expensive hobby now. There's lots of reasons why I moved on to Reaper miniatures and WizKids, and it's mainly price. Plus, I'm not I'm not a keen guy for sticking the miniatures together. I like my miniatures where, you know, I stick the wings on a dragon, but that's about as much as I really want to do. I want to just paint my miniatures, make dioramas and have some fun. Okie dokie. So I hope you all kind of understood what I was talking about with the stripping of the paints. It is very, very simple. Now, if you want to strip plastic, again, there are lots of products out there for stripping plastic. But what you'll find is fairy liquid, washing up liquid, is fantastic for stripping plastic acrylic from your miniatures. There are better products out there, but if you're on a budget, like most of us are, fairy liquid is perfect, and that's the stuff you wash up your dishes with. You know, the hands that do. I was going to sing it, but I can't remember what it is. Tal will know. Tal will sing the fairy song to you. Okay. Now, this is the classic. This is the classic Balrog from 2001 or 2002. I can't quite remember now. This is the version that's the all metal body, but with the plastic wings. Now, they did do another version which is completely plastic, completely metal. Sorry. Now, this version is very collectible, and it could cost you quite a lot of money if you want to get one of these. But if I don't know if Carlos is in chat. Carlos is actually on my Lord of the Rings tier, and this is going to be his gift, his miniature. I'll be sending him for his July posting. So he's having a super classic mega Balrog being sent to him. So the reason why I want to do this today is because I'm going to send this miniature to Carlos. I wanted to do a little bit more work on it. So as you can see, the paint is starting to peel off. It's an old paint job, but what we can do now is I can use a small round file, and I can just go around where I've missed parts. I'm going to take off the parts of the paint which are a little bit iffy. Nothing major. We're just going to thin down the paint with our file, because it's not difficult, but it's a way to help because I'm going to add a second coat on top now, and we don't want to lose too much detail. So all we're doing is, where I've put the paint on before and it's quite thick in places, I mean, we are talking nearly 20 years ago, we just remove those parts. I'm surprised the paint has actually stayed on so well, but we'll just remove parts of the paint. I mean, all this is metal, apart from the wings, but because the wings are attached, what you'll find with the old Games Workshop miniatures, especially when they use the old plastic. Now, I've had a couple of these Balrogs in the past, and what you'll find, and if you're a collector of Lord of the Rings miniatures, you'll know straight away how brittle these miniatures go. These wings snap, the claws snap. It's just the years and years of the different room temperatures. It affects the plastic and makes it go very, very brittle. So you have to be very, very careful with these. So I'm just going to quickly prep these up. What we're going to do today, as you can see, I've got my old flames from years ago, but what we've got now is we got the old contrast yellow, and you all know how much I love this paint. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to paint over all these flames in the white, into the mouth, over all the areas here that are showing, and then I'll add that ink wash, and then I'll dry brush black over. But what will happen, it will just make those flames pop more on the miniature, and we can actually add some lighting effects to the base as well. And it's just to revamp it for 2021, you know, a little treat for the Balrog. Yes, well, I will ship it very, very carefully. I'll have it in a box full of paper, and I'll have the wings supported on each side like so. Yeah, I haven't had too many problems posting miniatures. But you all know the risk of posting a miniature. It's not often the way the miniature is packed, it's the way it's delivered by the postman. I know a lot of my boxes have arrived looking like they've been kicked around the old factory floor. So we're just quickly going over the file. As you can see, the paint is coming away in certain places, but what we do, we're just trying to make sure it's flat enough. And what we have here, we've got some fine sandpaper, and with the fine sandpaper, what I'm going to do is just go over and this will just help to give a bond for the second layer, should I say, of paint that we're going to be adding to this miniature. Not too hard, and that's fine. Just go over with your fingers and you can tell if there's any chipping or loose paint. That's fine. We'll just go in between there. Now, because I've already got this layer of paint on the flames, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be just adding some MSP Dragon White directly over the top. But what we'll do is we shall check the actual barrel first for any lumps and bumps on the flames that we're going to remove. If there is any thick parts, we can just take them off with the point of our file. No, it's I've done thousands of miniatures now, Carlos, and it's all trial and error. It's all trial and error. I mean, some people will say, oh, you can't do it like that, but it's worked for me. And I mean, you've all had miniatures from me, so I think I've got a little bit of trust in my goblins, and hopefully I'm not trying to teach you bad ways to do things. I do try to show you shortcuts to speed up your painting, of course. But what I'm trying to do is make you see that it's possible to repaint your old miniatures, because it's like any hobby. It's like when I was a chef, you get better at being a chef, you get better at painting, you get better at riding a motorcycle, you know. So it's a natural thing to look back on your old miniatures, and I know most of you are doing it now. You're looking into your display cabinets, you look at your old miniatures from like maybe a couple of years ago, and you've all advanced so much in your painting skills that you're like, oh my god, I wish I could redo that. And what I'm trying to do is say it's okay to do that. There's nothing wrong in going back and repainting your miniatures. And if you've got metal miniatures, it's even better, because you can strip them down and do them again. But never feel that because it's already painted, you cannot redo it again. It's a learning curve. I mean, I've repainted hundreds, probably thousands of my old miniatures. We all move forward. We all move forward. Okay. We've got some old super glue. Look, I'm gonna have to focus up again. Super glue in certain parts of the miniature, just there. Again, we can get the point of our file, and we just go around, and I'll just pop out the super glue. Because what we want is, we want to be able to put that back on, so we want to make that quite rough, so it attaches back. So by using this file, you're making the metal nice and rough, and that'll stick on there nicely when we add the super glue. Okay, so I'm going to start adding that paint, and what we can do, as you can see, there's a lot of dust on there. Another nice way to go through it is just, you can flick off all the dust on the wings and stuff. You can see this has been in my display cabinet for absolutely years and years and years. But hopefully it will go in Carlos's display cabinet in a month's time, and he'll be pride and place, because this is a very, very highly collectible miniature now. It's one of the most sought after Balrogs from the Lord of the Rings line. You can still get the plastic. You can still get the plastic Balrog, but thank you for subscribing. You can still get the plastic Balrog, but the metal Balrog, they stopped doing that version many, many years ago. There's two different versions of the plastic Balrog, and there's two different versions of the metal Balrog. This is the second edition Balrog with the plastic wings, but there's also a first edition which comes with metal wings. And I know the metal winged version has been selling for like £300–400. I know this one. I've seen this one on eBay selling for £250. It's absolutely ridiculous. But it's a cool miniature, and if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, then it's you need it in your collection. You need it in your collection. Okay, Dragon White. My warthog has decided not to work today, so I'm gonna have to shake the paints by hand. Hello, Mokai. Mokai. Oh, actually, while I'm doing my shaky painty, while I do the shaky painty, if anybody on my painted tiers wants to have a free miniature, type in now, I want a free miniature, and this is for everybody that's on a painted tier. I want a free mini, that's the one. I want a free mini. So as you can see, this is all nice and smooth now. So all I'm going to do is I'm adding direct Dragon White over the whole area. And we want to get this as bright as possible, because I'm going to be using that beautiful yellow contrast paint by Games Workshop. Which actually looks like flames once you've added it to all the parts, and it just makes a huge difference. It just looks amazing. I absolutely love that contrast paint. I mean, I've been painting flames like this for years using the oranges and reds, but just by adding this white, adding this white to the flames now, and then going over with that contrast paint, it gives such a fantastic effect of fire, and that's what we're after, because a Balrog is full of fire. So we're just adding that white. Now I'm using MSP paints by Reaper Miniatures. I will say they are my favourite paints. I do like using paints from all the companies as well. I like Army Painter and Vallejo. They're all fantastic paints. But MSP are my go-to. I did my kind of number one, as I call it. Games Workshop I would probably use Games Workshop a lot more if they had dropper bottles. I don't know if they've changed it now. I mean, it's been such a long time since I've bought Games Workshop paints, but I think if Games Workshop moved to dropper bottles like this, they'd probably sell a lot more paints. But at the moment, I am very, very happy with my Reaper Miniatures MSP paints. I always found Games Workshop paints were very thick anyway, so I was always watering down the paints. I don't need to do that with my MSP paints. They're kind of ready out of the bottle. Now, because I've not removed any paint I've still got a layer of paint on there. You've probably noticed I'm just adding directly Dragon White, which is an ordinary acrylic paint. I'm not using a primer paint because there's already paint on the miniature, and of course we're not trying to add a very thick layer, because we are adding another layer on top of a layer, so we want to try and keep it as thin as possible so we don't lose any detail on this miniature. There we are. We'll just leave that to dry a little bit. Like I say, I'm just going to show you how I can make the flames and everything on the Balrog just make it much better than it was. So we'll put that one over here. I'll just balance you up on there for now. Give my brush a wash. Yes, yeah, I understand, totally understand. Hello, Casper Kenobi. So we'll just add some white now to this part here, and hopefully it'll all dry and we can go back and forth and work on the rest of the miniature. Like I say, I'm just adding the white to the areas where the flames were before, because what's going to happen now is it's going to be a lot more brighter, it's going to be a lot more intense, because we're adding this white. And with that wash, as you can see, the old effect here is very dull. It's a very dull effect. So what I'm doing now is we're revamping the Balrog, and what's going to happen is all the flames are going to pop, and it's going to look so much better. So we're going to go all over the teeth as well. We're going to really get this mouth glowing now, just like in a film where you have the flames coming from the mouth of the Balrog. So get as much white in as possible without losing any detail, of course. There we go. And let me just wash my brush again. What we can do is we can put some white onto those eyes as well, because if I remember correctly, the Balrog's eyes are also glowing with fire. So what we'll do is we just get some paint on those eyes. Let's get some nice dragon white in the eyes there, and that we can also go over with the yellow wash on the eyes as well. And also just in the middle on the nose, he's got that hollow nose. There you go. Let's just get that paint in there. Okay, now it's very simple, and again we'll go back to the flames on the back of the miniature now, and again we'll just add that white with a larger brush. Once we've added all the yellow ink wash to the Balrog and that yellow ink wash is dried, what we do is we can dry brush black directly down the bottom here, and that will blend it in the flames and make it look more real, more effective. Hopefully we got enough time and the paint will dry in time so I can show you that. But as always, once I have finished everything I do on the show, once I do the YouTube video, I will add a 360 of the finished miniature so you can all see the end results if we don't get the miniature finished actually on the Twitch stream itself. I do like to finish all my miniatures once I've had the stream, and I do like to add a nice 360 so you can actually see what I've been up to and the finished results of what you've been shown on the stream. I like to keep my streams an hour, I find an hour is more than long enough to watch anybody painting. For me personally, I get bored very quickly watching films, so I can't keep myself in one place for hours and hours at one time, apart from painting miniatures, of course. I do try to support all my goblins as well that do Twitch streams, but there is a heck of a lot of you now. So I'm afraid I can't watch all your shows, or else I wouldn't have any time for myself. But it is fantastic that everybody is trying out Twitch and trying out new things. It's also a confidence booster for me as well, because I know a lot of you started doing your Twitch shows, and a lot of you started painting directly through me doing what I do. And that's a huge thing for me. It's a nice feeling to know that my painting has given people the inspiration to try new things, because that's what it's all about, you know, having a bit of fun. Okay, so that's that white on there, and as you can see, it's already glowing compared to what we had before. Wait, do you also have to finish painting minis? I've still got thousands of miniatures unpainted as well, the Bull GM. I'd be a complete liar if I said I'd painted every single one. I mean, I'm still working on the mushroom bases. Remember I did the mushroom bases for the dragons not long ago? I finished a couple of them, but I haven't finished the actual mushroom one. I start one project and I move on to another project, but I try my best to get the actual miniature on a stream that I'm doing finished with a 360. Okay, this is about dry now, a little bit longer. What we can do as well is we can get the base all done up. With the base here, I'll probably just add black all around the base there. And we are going to go into these areas here. But I think what we'll do today is we'll work out these flames, because otherwise we're not going to have enough time. Okay, still a little bit damp. This is where I get stuck. What we can actually do is we'll move on to some I got some dragon black here, and we'll start touching up these parts of the wings here. We can start going down the membranes of the wings and over the claws. Again, it's all very simple stuff, but if you've been painting for years and years, you will go back and see your old miniatures, and you will want to repaint them. So never feel bad about that. It's a normal process it's a learning process, and it just means you're getting better at what you do. When you look back at your old miniatures and you think, I need to repaint them, it's a blessing. It means you're improving. It means your skill, you're leveling up. You're leveling up. I'm just going over all the claws. It's amazing that I look back at my old miniatures, and you can see so much I have missed on the miniature. You can see all I've done. I did a basic black with a dry brush, but missed quite a few of the main parts of the miniature. Even though for 20 years ago, it still looked very nice on my tabletop. Now I think to myself, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that, you could do this, you know, little areas that you've, you know, made a mess, you can just touch up with the black parts you've missed on the miniature, you know, maybe there's the odd chip on the metal, you can just go over it with the black and just touch it up a little bit. And remember, when you do your miniature, it's also really important, if you want to look after you and care for your miniatures, is to use varnishes. I use, let me find my varnishes. They've all disappeared on me now. I got satin varnishes. You got satin varnish, you got matte varnish, and you got gloss varnish. You got your 3 types of varnishes. Now these are all to protect your miniatures. They also give different effects to your miniatures. But the main thing is, if you're a gamer, it means when you pick up your miniatures, you've got less chance of chipping. So most of my miniatures are definitely given a coating of matte or satin. Gloss varnish I normally use for just water type effects, but satin varnish and matte varnish, mainly matte varnish, is super important because it protects your miniatures from picking them up all the time. Hello, Renegade Shank. Okay, are we done on this now? Yeah. Okay, so this is the absolutely awesome fire. Yeah. Yes. I will mention what you've just said there. Zen Bacon. It's exactly the same with the Dettol. Now with the Dettol, if you leave your miniature in the Dettol, 2 weeks is okay, even a month is okay. Leave your metal miniatures in the Dettol, because that's what I've done. No problems. But if you leave your metal miniatures, they can actually start to dissolve. It's like acid. They can actually start to dissolve in the glass. So you do have to be very careful. And the same with the plastics. Plastics you got to be very careful of, because they warp and they actually start melting. Do not use Dettol. Never use Dettol for resin or plastic. If you use the Dettol for that, it will melt in the pot. And that's thank you so much for mentioning that, Zen Bacon, because that is really important to know. Plastic in the wrong substance melts, and I've tried it, and Reaper Bones is melts quite fast. It's ugly. So you got to be careful what you do. Use the right stuff. Metal, you want Dettol, and if you're trying to strip plastic, just use your fairy liquid. That's worked for me. Okay, I just got a nice little brush here, and I'll just stuck my hand in the paint. That's nice. I just stuck my hand in the dragon white. Rod, that's quite right. Yes, I mean, I take it you all know how to fix your Bones miniatures by doing the warm water and the cold water trick. If you want to fix warped miniatures, and this is for Games Workshop miniatures, it works on Games Workshop miniatures, it works on resin miniatures, it works on Mantic Games miniatures, it works on your Bones miniatures, and all you do is, if you've got a warped sword or a warped body or warped staff on any of your plastic miniatures or resin miniatures, all you do is you boil your kettle and you put your bones into that boiling hot water until, and normally the actual plastic miniature will straighten itself out in the hot water. So all you do then is use some tweezers. Do not put your hand into the boiling hot water to pick out the plastic bones miniature. And what you do, you have some freezing cold water next to your hot water, and that will instantly harden the plastic and keep it from warping again. It doesn't work on every single bones miniature. I mean, I've had a few dragons and they've actually gone back to the way they were. But in most cases it does actually work. Now, as you can see with this beautiful paint, it's an incredible thing. The orange goes into all the recesses, and then of course with the white undercoat, it gives that light effect. So you've got that lovely flame effect going all the way around. So it's just fantastic. It's one of the best things I've found for doing flames. It just works a treat for me. And you just add the yellow, and it does all the work for you just by all that flame effect. It just works. There's nothing I can really say about it. It just works. It's a painting phenomenon. even Tal, no, maybe not. But even Tal could use it. Yeah. So all we're doing is a nice layer of this wash. Now with the wash, because it's such a thin wash, we don't have to worry about losing any detail. And of course, as a wash, it does the work for you. It goes in all those recesses, and you don't have to worry about pushing the paint into the recesses. It does the job for you. So all we're doing is just adding our yellow over the white, and of course, because we've added that lovely white initial coat of paint, it's making all that yellow pop and look fantastic. And that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, that's all we need to do. It's simple. We'll let that dry. I'll probably add a little bit of a whitey dry brush on the front there once that's dry, but that's all good to go. I mean, the flames look fab. What we can do as well is a tiny weeny little bit of black dry brushing just on the tips of those flames, and that'll just look absolutely fab. And compared to what it was, what we got now is some real nice glowing fire effects like Lord of the Rings. And we'll do the same with the flames on the head. Okay. Right, so I think we're all dry there. We're just going to the mouth first. Again, we're just going right to the back of the mouth. We'll just add in some of this lovely wash. And look at the difference it makes. You instantly got an absolutely fantastic look. Right, I'm using a smaller brush now just to add some of this lovely ink wash to the nose and the eyes. Just get some ink wash in there. There you go. And the same on the little nosy. There you go, little nosy. It's fab. Love it. I mean, the new generation of paints that they're bringing out now is, excuse me a second, just trying to get some tissues. The new generation of paints that they've got now are just getting better and better and better all the time. I mean, I started in the late 70s with the enamel paints. You know, I was painting, I wasn't doing fantasy back then. I was painting Spitfires, Junkers, warships, model trains. I started painting fantasy miniatures in the 80s, but before that it was all Airfix model kits. And of course we had that whole little, remember the little tin the little tin paints, the little tin Airfix paints. And if you stayed in your room long enough, you was able to actually teleport and float down the stairs because you're so high from sniffing all the paint. I mean, I think for the first my first 15 years of my life, my parents thought I was just off my box. It's because I was painting with these Airfix paints all the time. I was absolutely out of my head. They were so strong. I mean, a lot of you are the same age as me. You've all tried those old Airfix paints. You've all been there. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. Those paints were, I mean, you had strong paints when you had to use white spirit to wash your brushes after you'd painted your miniatures. We're nearly done. I'm just going to get these flames done and we'll call it a day. I just wanted to show you how easy it is to revamp your miniatures. And of course, stripping metal miniatures also opens up another hobby for you. It means you can go on to eBay and stuff like that, and you can look up for all the old Dungeons and Dragons miniatures, the old metal miniatures, old Lord of the Rings miniatures, and it means you can purchase old painted miniatures as long as you know they're metal, especially the old Lord of the Rings miniatures. I mean, all the old Lord of the Rings miniatures, apart from the goblins, they were all in metal, which means every single one of those miniatures, you're able to strip them down with some Dettol and you can restart them and do them again. So it means you can get a nice collection of miniatures quite cheaply off eBay or any collector's site, and you can strip those miniatures down yourself, and it's just like having brand new ones. It's a fantastic way to get into the hobby because it is an expensive hobby, especially metal, but metal to me is the treasure of the hobby. My favorite miniatures will always be metal. So there we are. That's all we've done so far. Just by changing those flames, on this miniature, the miniature has suddenly been transported to 2021. So there's always hope. There's always hope for your miniatures. Even when you look at your old miniatures and you think, oh my god, you'll be surprised how quickly you can I'll stick that back. I'll stick that onto the arm later. But just by doing a few little modern techniques to your old miniatures that you've had in your showcase for many years, you can actually have a fantastic looking brand new miniature. So there we are. Let's have a look at the time. Yeah, that's perfect for me. That's about all I can do for tonight. I hope you enjoyed the little show, and I hope it's given you some inspiration to maybe look at your old miniatures and maybe, because I know I've said it a few times for this show, but it is difficult when you look at your old miniatures, and as you get better in miniature painting, you will want to start repainting your old miniatures. And I'm just trying to reassure you that even people like myself, we all do it. We all repaint our miniatures. And it's just a sign of you all getting better at what you do. So there we are. I will see you all in Discord. And I'm sure Claire will announce the winner of the competition for the free miniature. And I shall see you all on, what day are we on? I shall see you all on Thursday, where it'll be the WizKids. It'll be the WizKids miniature. So love to every single one of you, and thank you so much for popping on. I had a great time. So good night, everybody.